Welcome to this episode of the story. Have you subscribed yet? Chapter 88, Secluded Cultivation and Underlying Turbulence. Sumo sat cross-legged in the corner of the cave, calmed his mind, and began to comprehend the power of the eye of the spiritual abyss. The illusory figure stood beside him, exuding a soft glow all over, quietly watching Sumo, ready to offer guidance at crucial moments. The eye of the spiritual abyss hovered not far in front of Sumo, with light flowing and runes flickering, and a mysterious and powerful aura spreading. Sumo slowly closed his eyes and gently circulated the reverse. Time's spiritual power, the spiritual, spring's spiritual power, and the space spiritual power in his body, bringing them to a delicate state of balance. Seho, he tried to extend his spiritual power perception towards the eye of the spiritual abyss. The moment his spiritual power touched the eye of the spiritual power touched the eye of the spiritual abyss, a vast and complex force, like a surging tide, rushed into his perception, making his spirit stir. This force contained the most fundamental spiritual power laws of the spirit fantasy realm. The mysteries of time, space, life, and order seemed to be intertwined within. Sumo tried his best to keep calm, concentrating on sorting out this force, attempting to find the part that resonated with his own spiritual power. Beads of sweat gradually covered his forehead, and his body trembled slightly, indicating the difficulty of this process. Seeing this, the illusory figure raised his hand and gently waved, injecting a gentle stream of spiritual power into Sumo's body to help him stabilize his mind. Don't rush. Proceed step by step. Feel the rhythm of the eye of the spiritual abyss and establish resonance with it. The voice of the illusory figure, like a great bell, echoed in Sumo's heart. Taking a deep breath, Sumo followed the guidance of the illusory figure, slowed down the rhythm of his perception, and accepted the power of the eye of the spiritual abyss in a more gentle and inclusive way. As time passed, Sumo gradually found the feeling. He discovered that the reverse, time spiritual power resonated seamled with the power of the time law within the eye of the spiritual abyss, like a plucked string, emitting a clear and harmonious vibration. Following this resonance, Sumo further guided the power of the eye of the spiritual abyss to integrate into his spiritual power system. During this process, Sumo's consciousness seemed to enter a wonderful space. He saw the intertwined lights and shadows of the past, present, and future of the spirit fantasy realm, saw the tracks of spiritual power flowing among all things in the world, and saw the cycle of life blooming and fading due to spiritual power. These scenes elevated his understanding of spiritual power to a whole new level, and at the same time, made him more keenly aware of the great responsibility of guarding the eye of the spiritual abyss. Meanwhile, in other corners of the spirit fantasy realm, the mysterious force did not give up because of the failure of the spiritual equilibrators. Sensing the commotion near the eye of the spiritual abyss, they began to regroup their forces, preparing to make another attempt to seize the eye of the spiritual abyss. In a gloomy palace, the leader of the mysterious force sat on the throne with a yin-chen expression, listening to the report from his subordinate. Leader, the spiritual equilibrators failed. The eye of the spiritual abyss is currently seemingly guarded by a kid named Sumo and a mysterious, illusory figure. A Heiren knelt on one knee, saying cautiously, "Useless. A bunch of useless people." The leader of the mysterious force angrily slapped the armrest and stood up. Immediately gather all forces and retrieve the eye of the spiritual abyss at all costs. If that kid successfully masters the power of the eye of the spiritual abyss, our plan will be completely ruined. The Heiren took the order and left. Soon, various branches of the mysterious force began to move. They gathered a large number of dark cultivators, evil spirit beasts, and wizards proficient in all kinds of strange spells. A conspiracy targeting Sumo and the eye of the spiritual abyss was quietly brewing, and danger was approaching step by step. Outside the cave, the cultivators of Lingxi town were vigilantly guarding. They knew very well that Sumo was engaged in a crucial cultivation and must not be disturbed by anyone. However, as time passed, they also vaguely felt the abnormal atmosphere around them. Occasionally, a few strange beast roars could be heard around the originally quiet cave, and there seemed to be a faint evil aura lingering in the air. A young cultivator nervously tightened his grip on the weapon in his hand and said to the elder beside him, "Elder, I feel something is not right. It seems that something is watching us in the dark." The elder slightly furrowed his brows, circulated his spiritual power to sense the surroundings, and said, "There is indeed something strange. Everyone, be on high alert. No one is allowed to approach the cave." The cultivators of Lingxi town spread out one after another, expanding the alert range. Their eyes were firm, ready to face any possible danger at any time. However, what they didn't know was that the vanguard of the mysterious force had quietly approached, and a fierce battle was about to break out. Back in the cave, Sumu made significant progress in the process of fusing with the power of the Eye of the Spiritual Abyss. He successfully integrated part of the power of the Time Law from the Eye of the Spiritual Abyss into his reverse, Time Spiritual Power, greatly enhancing the power of the reverse, Time Spiritual Power. Moreover, he could vaguely feel that the integration of his Space Spiritual Power and Spring Spiritual Power had also become smoother due to the power of the Eye of the Spiritual Abyss. But this was just the beginning. The power of the Eye of the Spiritual Abyss was too vast, and Sumo needed continuous cultivation and comprehension to fully master it. During the breaks in his cultivation, the illusory figure began to teach Sumu the methods of controlling the Eye of the Spiritual Abyss. These methods involved the drawing of complex spiritual power runes, specific spiritual power circulation routes, and the techniques of establishing a spiritual connection with the Eye of the Spiritual Abyss. Sumo studied intently, memorizing every detail in his heart. He knew that this knowledge would be the key to whether he could successfully guard the Eye of the Spiritual Abyss and use it to stop the conspiracy of the mysterious force. As he delved deeper into the learning, Sumu gradually gained some insights into the control of the Eye of the Spiritual Abyss. He tried to communicate with the Eye of the Spiritual Abyss in a gentle way, guiding it to release some tiny power. With a flash of light from the Eye of the Spiritual Abyss, a soft spiritual power ray shot towards the cave wall, and a perfect circular hole instantly appeared on the wall, with the edge as smooth as a mirror. Looking at his achievement, Sumu was filled with joy in his heart, but he also understood that this was just the tip of the iceberg of the power of the Eye of the Spiritual Abyss. Just as Sumu was immersed in cultivation and learning, a shout suddenly came from outside the cave. "There are enemies!" 紧接着, the lights of various spiritual power collisions illuminated the darkness outside the cave. The cultivators of Lingxi town had encountered the vanguard of the mysterious force. The members of the mysterious force were dressed in black robes with ferocious masks on their faces. They unleashed various evil spiritual power spells and attacked the cultivators of Lingxi town. The cultivators of Lingxi town showed no fear. They unleashed their spiritual power moves one after another to counter-attack. For a moment, shouts of killing rose and fell outside the cave, and spiritual power lights interlaced and flickered. A dark cultivator of the mysterious force used the dark corrosion curse, and a black corrosive spiritual power shot towards a cultivator of Lingxi town. That cultivator quickly circulated his spiritual power and used the spiritual spring shield. A layer of green light fancy on the surface of the shield, blocking the attack of the black corrosive spiritual power. However, the attacks of the mysterious force came in waves. They had a large number of people and coordinated well, gradually pushing the cultivators of Lingxi town into a difficult situation. The elder of Lingxi town knew very well that this couldn't go on like this. He shouted loudly, "Everyone, don't panic! Keep the formation and support each other." At the same time, he used his most powerful spiritual power spell, the Spiritual Flame Blast, and a huge flame spiritual power blasted towards the crowd of the mysterious force. The flame's spiritual power exploded among the crowd, and there were continuous screams for a moment. But the members of the mysterious force did not retreat. They continued to launch attacks, trying to break through the defense line of the cultivators of Lingxi town and enter the cave to seize the Eye of the Spiritual Abyss. In the intense battle, a cultivator of Lingxi town was unfortunately hit by the enemy and fell in a pool of blood. Seeing this, the other cultivators were filled with grief and anger. They burst out with even more powerful force and fought desperately. But the vanguard of the mysterious force was not to be underestimated, and the casualties of the cultivators of Linxi Town gradually increased. Hearing the commotion outside the cave, Sumo's heart tightened, but he knew that he couldn't be distracted at this time. Once he interrupted his cultivation, all his previous efforts might be in vain. The illusory figure looked at Sumo and said, "Don't worry, they will hold on. Keep cultivating and master the power of the eye of the spiritual abyss as soon as possible. This is the key to dealing with the crisis." Gritting his teeth, Sumo suppressed the worry in his heart and once again focused his attention on the eye of the spiritual abyss to continue his cultivation. He knew that only by becoming stronger as soon as possible could he truly protect the people of Linxi Town and stop the conspiracy of the mysterious force. On the battlefield outside the cave, can the cultivators of Linxi Town hold the defense line? Can Sumo successfully master the power of the eye of the spiritual abyss at this critical moment and turn the situation around? Everything is full of suspense. As the battle continued, the vanguard of the mysterious force gradually gained the upper hand. Although the cultivators of Linxi Town resisted tenaciously, the disadvantage in numbers and the powerful evil spiritual power of the enemy made it increasingly difficult for them. Several more cultivators were injured and fell to the ground, and the blood stained the ground outside the cave. The elder of Linxi Town was extremely anxious. Looking at his injured companions, his heart was filled with pain and helplessness, but he knew that he couldn't give up and must buy more time for Sumo. So he exerted all his strength and used the forbidden spell, the spiritual guardian barrier. A huge spiritual power barrier appeared in front of everyone, emitting a dazzling light, temporarily blocking the attacks of the mysterious force. Seeing this, the members of the mysterious force increased their attack intensity, trying to break the barrier. They unleashed various evil spiritual power spells. Black flames, corrosive rays, and strange curses all blasted towards the barrier. The barrier trembled violently under the powerful attacks, and its light became increasingly dim. The elder of Linxi Town looked pale, with beads of sweat covering his forehead. He tried his best to maintain the stability of the barrier, but he knew that this barrier couldn't hold on for long. Inside the cave, Sumo felt the intensity of the battle outside the cave and the dangerous situation of the people in Linxi Town. He was extremely anxious and accelerated the speed of fusing with the power of the eye of the spiritual abyss during his cultivation. However, the excessive speed of fusion also brought great risks. His body couldn't bear the impact of the powerful force of the eye of the spiritual abyss, and tiny cracks appeared in his meridians, with blood oozing from the corner of his mouth. Seeing this, the illusory figure immediately came to his aid. He injected his spiritual power into Sumu's body, helping Sumu stabilize the chaotic spiritual power in his body, and guiding the power of the eye of the spiritual abyss to integrate into Sumu's spiritual power system in a more gentle way. Don't be hasty. Haste makes waste. Stay calm and integrate the power at the right pace. The illusory figure said seriously. Taking a deep breath, Sumu tried his best to calm himself down. He adjusted the rhythm of the fusion according to the guidance of the illusory figure and gradually stabilized the spiritual power in his body. As time passed, Sumu made a new breakthrough in the fusion with the eye of the spiritual abyss. He successfully integrated part of the power of the space law from the eye of the spiritual abyss with his space spiritual power and mastered a new spiritual power move, the spiritual abyss space rift. Sumo opened his eyes with a firm light flickering in them. He knew it was time to go out and help the people of Linxi Town. He stood up and walked towards the outside of the cave. The illusory figure looked at Sumo, nodded slightly and said, "Go. Use the new power you've mastered to protect what you want to protect." Sumu walked out of the cave and saw the tragic battlefield outside. Most of the cultivators of Linxi Town were injured, and the spiritual power guardian barrier of the elder of Linxi Town was about to shatter. The members of the mysterious force were about to launch the final blow to break through the barrier. Burning with anger, Sumu circulated the reverse. Time spiritual power, the spiritual spring spiritual power, the space spiritual power, and the power of the eye of the spiritual abyss that he had just integrated and used the spiritual abyss space rift. A huge space rift appeared among the crowd of the mysterious force. A powerful suction force emanated from the rift, sucking in the surrounding enemies one after another. The members of the mysterious force screamed in horror, trying to escape, but the suction force of the rift was too strong and they couldn't break free. As Sumu injected more spiritual power, the space rift continued to expand, and the vanguard of the mysterious force was instantly thrown into chaos. Seeing Sumu appear, the cultivators of Linksea Town were overjoyed. Inspired by Sumu, they regained their spirits and unleashed their spiritual power, moves one after another to counter-attack the mysterious force. With the leadership of Sumu's powerful force, can the cultivators of Linksea Town successfully repel the vanguard of the mysterious force? What kind of follow-up actions will the mysterious force take? What role will the power of the eye of the spiritual abyss mastered by Sumu play in the upcoming crisis? Everything is still unknown. The story continues. More exciting content is coming up. Subscribe as soon as possible.